Hey guys, it's Tim coming at you with a brand new episode of The Spotlight, the show where I pose an interesting question or just a general interesting idea and then have you guys take from there in the comments. When you're writing a story, there are a lot of different aspects that go into it, but the most important three, at least in my opinion, would have to be plot, world, and character. And there's been debate about which of the three is most important in engaging your audience when telling your story in order to make it as successful as possible. So let's take a look at the three of them each one by one. So let's start off with the story itself, the plot. And based on that alone, it seems like plot should be the most important thing to a story, because it is the actions that are taking place that's driving everything forward. But at the same time, we all have at least one movie or comic book or different type of story that we enjoy that really doesn't have the strongest plot to it, but we still enjoy it anyway. Or there are cases where, in movies like Pulp Fiction, there really is no one set plot that the movie is following. It's all a series of vignettes featuring the characters, and yet people still herald that as being one of the greatest movies ever made. So let's move on to our second example, which is world. And what I mean by that is the setting and the backstory and the universe that all these actions are taking place. Like how Kraven's Last Hunt is a story, but the Marvel Universe is the world that the story takes place in. And there can definitely be arguments made towards getting lost in the world of any particular story. Probably the biggest example of this of all time would be the Star Wars franchise, where the original trilogy have fairly simplistic stories that they're trying to tell throughout them with more archetypical characters. And the prequels are pretty much weak on all fronts, but still have enough world building that engage people in order to create expanded content in that portion of the universe. And this world that Star Wars built around it was engaging enough to its audience that people wanted to expand upon it and create new stories and new races and really flesh out the world with the canvas that they were given. But that being said, not every franchise is going to end up being like Star Wars, where the world steals the show and it's what people really gravitate towards. And there are tons of stories that take place in the real world, or in a world that isn't as fleshed out or engaging as Star Wars universe, but still tell successful stories. So finally, let's take a look at character. Now, feel free to disagree, but in my own opinion, character is the most important thing in storytelling. You can have extravagant backstories and universe building, or tell the most complex plot you possibly can, but if you don't care about who is in this universe or who these events are happening to, you're really not going to be as engaged in the story as you possibly could be. If your characters aren't relatable, or at the very least engaging, then people aren't going to gravitate towards your story or latch onto it as much as they would for other stories. And this works regardless of how complex or simple your story is, because take a look at slasher movies. Which ones do you care about more? Ones where you care about the people being killed, or ones where you want to see everybody die? And while the latter can definitely be cathartic, it's really more so going to be the outlier and can get tedious a lot more quickly than one where you're engaged in the people who these events are happening to. But at the same time, I have heard arguments made from people about them really enjoying different stories and worlds based on what happened in them and where they took place, even though they really didn't like the characters because the story and the world was strong enough to overwrite it. So it's always going to come down to a matter of preference. Personally, like I said, character is the most important thing in storytelling to me, but what do you guys think? Well, like always, let us know in the comments. If you're new here and you like what you've seen, feel free to subscribe. We have a Patreon account you can donate to if you feel so inclined. And until next time, this has been Tim from The Spotlight, signing out.